Man, my professional evil roller skating team is doing terribly. I think that I'm just a bad leader. What I need to do is look at all the great leaders of our time and really figure out how they ruthlessly commanded their underlings. It's probably helpful that I already have a shrine for each of my idols who just so happen to be some of the greatest leaders of all time. Wait a minute, forget about that. I can just play as Kids Next Door game and learn how to be a good leader by playing as number 1. Yeah, I know it's a stretch, but intros are hard, damn it. Codename Kids Next Door Operation Video Game, with some little dots in there, is an action platformer based on the animated kids show, Codename Kids Next Door, and was released back in 2005 on the PlayStation 2, OG Xbox, and Gamecube. Codename Kids Next Door Operation Video Game was developed by High Voltage Software, the same developers who brought you White Men Can't Jump on the Atari Jaguar. I did it. I jumped. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's jump into what I'm going to be calling V.I.D.E.O.G.A.M.E, because saying Codename Kids Next Door Operation V.I.D.E.O.G.A.M.E every minute probably has the same effect on the human brain as downing a pint of vodka followed by a nice glass of Uncle Jerry's special juice. Not too sure where I was going with that one. Hey, but don't worry about it, let's just talk about the game. Starting up the game, we're greeted with a nice little menu that lets us, well, start the game, check out the options, watch the credits, or use top secret cheats. But this is a 12-year-old kids game, so I doubt that the cheats will be necessary for us today. Entering the first level, we're greeted with a cutscene that shows us the kids next door playing games. When the Toilet Man pops in for the only reason that you could expect a man in a toilet paper spandex suit to unexpectedly visit a group of kids for is to tie them up. He ties them up. This starts the tutorial where you play as number 1 and get used to the controls while beating up a creepy toilet man and eventually freeing your teammates. The controls here are pretty, well, they're not great, but they're not terrible either. They're passable for the most part, with strafing and locking on enemies being solid and the movement in combat feeling very not great. The platforming feels pretty jank, and all the weapons only have a basic attack and a super attack, neither of which feels satisfying to use. Alongside learning the controls, the tutorial shows us a few of the collectibles that are littered around the levels. You have your little purple bear things that unlock secrets, your drinks and ice cream that replenish your special attack meter, sweets that give you health, and in every level there are 4 to 6 4x4 wooden planks that once you collect all of, give you a more powerful weapon to use for the rest of the level. The idea behind these wooden planks is pretty nifty, but sadly they're always hidden in plain sight, so I never really felt the need to explore the levels, as they were easier to find than a T-Rex with a Mario hat in an empty car park. After the tutorial, we find out that all of the most dangerous Kids Next Door villains have escaped from prison, and it's the Next Door kids' job to go and capture them all again. That's pretty much the extent of the story, really. There's fun little cutscenes before and after each level that are all pretty charming, but the story itself isn't deep or anything. If you're a fan of the show or grew up with it like I did, then you'll probably get a pretty good kick out of these cutscenes. Instead of talking about each individual level, I'm just going to talk about the more interesting ones, and how each character plays as you get the chance to play as all of them, and they each have slightly different gameplay styles. First off, the lonely number 1 is the most basic character to play, as his combat comes down to just locking onto enemies and shooting them a bunch of times. Not too much to talk about with him, so let's move on. Next up, we have Barney 2, who you don't actually directly control. Instead, you take control of the school bus ship that he's piloting. These gameplay sections consist of dodging enemy bullets, shooting ships, and using your shield to absorb certain enemy shots to build up a special move that pretty much wipes out every enemy on the screen. These sections can be pretty fun, but my biggest issue with them is how long they go on for. You'd expect a flight level in a game like this to only last about 10 or so minutes, but here they go on for like 30 minutes at a time, which becomes tedious, especially when you're just doing the same thing over and over again. The flying isn't bad at all, it just overstays its welcome, which is a common theme with this game. A lot of the gameplay and levels are absolutely fine, but they just overstay their welcome and feel like they drag on and on and on, which is pretty annoying. It's frustrating. Just cut the time, make it a bit shorter, please. Alright, now let's talk about number 3, who doesn't actually have any attacks, and doesn't have to beat anything up. Instead, she can glide, and all of her levels consist of running around a room collecting adorable hamsters, to open up doors to collect more hamsters, to open more doors and collect more hamsters, and so on and so forth for about half an hour. These levels are genuinely fun, but again, they just go on for like 10 minutes too long in my opinion. And before you get the freeze gun, catching hamsters can be a bit of a ball ache. Just let me pet you hamsters, please. You're so cute. Saying that, it's all worth it to see these hamsters jumping on these bounce pads. This is good. I like this. Finally, Ni no Kuni 4 and 5 both control pretty much the exact same. You have your light and heavy melee attacks, you can double jump, wall jump, and most importantly, butt stomp. Woo! Butt stomping's back, baby! These melee-centric levels tended to be my favourite parts of the game, but again they fell victim to being just that bit too long that makes you start to hate them. I think if this game was a bit more polished and had a more satisfying combat system, then the levels being so long wouldn't be an issue. But if every aspect of the game is just alright at best, it can really leave a bad taste in your mouth. Kinda like Uncle Jerry's special juice. Speaking of number only 5, I want to quickly talk about this stealth level that she has. This level is the most bullshit thing I think I've ever had to play through in the history of this channel. You could be sneaking up behind someone and then out of nowhere they'll just grow eyes on the back of their head, spot you and call their friends to come over and beat you up. This wouldn't be as frustrating if you could stand a chance fighting against the enemies, but there's next to no healing items here, and the combat is nowhere near precise enough to be able to beat everyone up without taking a metric butt ton of damage. It got so bad that I literally had to go and activate an invincibility cheat just so I could get past this level. I was wrong earlier, the cheats were necessary for us. Bloody past me, with his dumb and terrible lazy foreshadowing. Why I order. The only other really frustrating level here is this vampire one where you play as Nova 1 and have to save the kids from slapping vampires. The concept for this level is actually kinda nifty. You need to lure the vampires into these small lights that you shoot to light up, and you can only deal damage to them when they're in the lit as heck area. The issue here comes with the bigger vampire dudes, who take forever to chase you and are a pain in the ass to get into the light. Again, this wouldn't be too bad if the level was a bit shorter, but nope, 30 minutes of tedium. It might sound like I'm being really negative on this game, but it genuinely isn't terrible. It's just not great either. It's mediocre to alright. Saying that, the final level is pretty freaking cool. I'll give the game some brownie points for that. You control this giant mech on the moon and you beat up the final boss mech, which are those evil kids from the show. This is cool. It controls about as well as the rest of the game, but it looks cool, so I'm fine with it. Also worth noting that the final boss only lasts about 10 minutes, so it didn't last long enough to get on my nerves, but instead was nice, sweet, and a pretty good way to end the game. Good job, devs. You did it good. In fact, most of the bosses in this game are pretty decent. You tend to just have to do a task that lets you hit them for a bit and then repeat that task. But they're all designed pretty well and tend to be fairly short. So it's just nice to beat up the bad guys from the show. Here's the pirate guy, the candy pirate. Look, I'm beating him up. That's cool, right? Here's the toilet paper guy again. Beating him up too. Beating everyone up. It's a good time. Finally, in terms of graphics, this game looks genuinely great in my opinion. It has that 2D cartoon gone PS2 game cel-shaded look that I've got a bit of a soft spot for, and the levels and models all looked pretty great, especially those hamsters. Look at those little hammies, dude, they look so cute. Look at those little cute goobers. So overall, I would say that if you're a fan of Kids Next Door, or if you grew up with it like me, then you might as well give Codename a go. At the very least, you'll like the writing and cutscenes. If you've never seen the show, or don't have any nostalgia or care for the series, then avoid the game. While it's far from bad, it just overstays its welcome, which ultimately dampens an otherwise decent title. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go lead my rollerblading team to victory in the tournament. There's like no way that we can lose after this. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please share it with your friends, family, or creepy neighbor, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Just want to say a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters, James Stewart, Andre Tanner, Corey, Mark, Classy, and Harvey. You're all the best numbers out there. If there's anything you liked or didn't like, be sure to let me know in the comments down below, or tweet me at Snooping Turtle. Also, if you want to watch more videos of me doing dumb stuff, you can check out this video I did for Ratchet & Clank: A Crack in Time, or this one I did for Noddy and the Magic Book. That's all from me now. I hope you have a lovely day. Bye bye.